Okay, so sometimes the source material we break down is this, super dense academic paper or maybe a long news report. But today we've got something a little different. It's more like a challenge. We've been handed this single, really fascinating instruction, and our job is to deconstruct it. So let's dive right in.
That's it. Seriously, this is our entire source. The grammar is a little unique, right? The instruction itself is incredibly direct. And, at first glance, you might think, okay, simple enough. But I promise you, packed into this one little sentence is a huge request about storytelling, about wealth, and about what we even mean when we say the word reality.
So, that's our mission today. We're going to treat this sentence like it's a map. We're going to break down every single phrase to figure out the story it wants us to tell. It's kind of a puzzle, honestly. So let's try and solve it together.
Okay, first things first, we've got to understand the basic building blocks here. Like any good detective, we start with the facts of the case. What is this sentence actually asking for?
Well, when you break it down, a pretty clear structure starts to show up. On one side, we have the what, the subject, right? Wall Street Millionaires. And on the other side, we have the how, the mandate to make it realistic and to include other people. Just understanding this split between the subject and the method, that's going to be the key to unlocking this whole thing.
So let's tackle that first part. The source immediately throws this really loaded term at us, Wall Street Millionaires. Before we can even begin to think about their paths to success, we have to ask a much more basic question. Who are we actually talking about here?
I mean, that phrase alone conjures up so many images, doesn't it? You're probably thinking of fast cars, slick suits, people yelling on chaotic trading floors. But our mandate, the core instruction, is realism. And that means we have to push past that Hollywood version of things.
So, on the one hand, you've got the cinematic myth. The lone wolf genius, the corporate raider who makes $1 billion on one gutsy phone call. But our source is pushing us towards something way more realistic. A reality that's a lot more complex, that's less about one single type of person and more about a whole diverse ecosystem of different roles.
And this is what's so interesting, because Wall Street Millionaire isn't really one single job. It's a possible outcome for people in all these incredibly specialized fields. You've got investment bankers who are structuring these massive corporate deals. You've got hedge fund managers who are managing billions of dollars of capital. And you even have quantitative analysts, the quants, who use super advanced math to build market models. Each one of these roles is its own universe, and the path to wealth in one looks completely different from the others.
Okay, so now that we've got a better idea of the who, let's move on to the how. The source talks about paths to riches. And notice it's plural, paths. That right there implies there isn't just one single way to get to the top.
And let's look at this crucial detail one more time. With some people. The source doesn't say a solo journey or the path of a lone genius. No, it specifically tells us to include this social collaborative element. And this little detail, it's everything. It completely reframes the entire journey. The source is telling us that the most realistic version of the story isn't about some solo climb up a mountain. It's built on teams, on mentors, on networks. That whole lone wolf thing, it's just a myth.
And here's one way you could kind of visualize that path. It all starts with the grind. And I mean, think 100-hour work weeks as a young analyst, just building spreadsheets until your eyes go blurry. That then leads to the network, a stage where building trust with clients and colleagues becomes your actual primary job. And it's only after all that that you earn the right to make the high-stakes bet, a calculated career-defining risk that's almost always backed by a whole team and their collective money.
So, we've looked at the people and we've looked at the paths, but both of those things are governed by the final, and I'd say most important instruction in our source text. This is really the heart of the entire request.
2 simple words, but they change everything. This isn't a request for a fantasy story or some kind of highlight reel. It is a demand for the truth of the process. But what does realistic really mean here? Is it just about the long hours and the high stress? Well, yeah, that's part of it. But it's also more than that. It's about totally redefining which parts of the story are actually the important ones to tell. So when you put it all together, realism in this context means showing the whole picture. It's not just about the big wins, it's about the immense risk and the very high probability of failure. And most importantly, it's about acknowledging that success is rarely, if ever, a solo act. It's built on that foundation of with some people. And this is really the ultimate takeaway from our whole breakdown.
Our source is demanding a story that focuses less on the destination, the wealth, the fancy stuff, and way more on the difficult, collaborative, and deeply uncertain journey it takes to even have a chance of getting there.
So let's look at it one last time. It doesn't seem like such a strange request anymore, does it? It's actually a really clear and powerful blueprint for a story. A story that goes beyond the myth to find a more complicated and, frankly, a much more interesting truth. A story about the process, not just the outcome.
And all of this leaves us with a final question to think about. When we say we want realistic stories of success, whether it's on Wall Street or anywhere else, what are we truly looking for? Are we hoping for a practical roadmap we can follow, or are we really just looking for an honest account of the human struggle, the teamwork, and the sheer luck that it takes to achieve something extraordinary?